The Adventures of David Liebehart. Hi, it's David Liebehart. I'm in Santa Cruz, and it's good to be back. It's beautiful here. It looks like it needs rain. I used to come up here to Jack Hubbell's association, the Christian Science Association, but because I like to date white girls, they were conservative. They didn't understand my taste for being diverse in dating, but you can't please everybody. And it's beautiful being in Santa Cruz. It reminds me when I used to come up here for the Christian Science Associations. Wow, it brings back memories for this. I'm doing a show in Santa Cruz. Joan Baez is a very talented lady that used to work with my cousin Linda McKinnon back in the day, and she also worked with the Smothers Brothers, and she worked with Steve Martin, and they did a show called the Smothers Brothers together with Pat Paulson, and they were very liberal. And Joan Baez and my cousin Linda McKinnon were hippies, and they were protesting against war and racism and conservativeness, and they were very liberal, and they were for peace and freedom group, which is similar to Democrat, which is a lot more liberal. And they used to do shows all over the place with Tiny Tim in the day. They were part of the hippie movement, which was and the liberal movement, which was good. Linda passed on. Very talented, bright woman. She was my favorite Caucasian cousin. She was related on my Scotch-Irish and German side. The video they did of her, she was blonde, not brunette. She had long blonde hair. They did the video all wrong. She reminded me of Carole King. She had long blonde hair. She's a very liberal white girl, and she was married to a guy named Winford Platinum that was a hippie. Was born in 1933. Very liberal guy. In fact, Jonah would love to be around her. She loved being a vegan. When I went to her house for dinner, she made the best vegan dressing and turkey and pumpkin pie. And then I used to stay with my cousin Albert Grange, who also was a vegan. And he too only believed in drinking water like Jonah. And he was living in Plano, Texas. And he got all his kids into being vegan. Albert Grange was so vegan that he made vegan food for his cats and dogs. Jonah would love this guy. He looked a lot like me, but he was fat, not real fat, but he looked a lot like everybody says that guy, Al Roper, that used to do the weather and is on to the Today shows. Everybody says I look like him. Both Al Roper and I have something in common. We're both German and Irish and African American and Apache, Sumac, Cherokee and Indian. But anyway, Al Roper, everybody says, "Oh, you remind me so much of Al Roper," and I do, look, but I'm a slender version of Al Roper. Anyway, I did. It's wonderful. I want you all to keep your fingers crossed for me. I finally got my talent booking manager named Jack Scanati to help me, let me use the stationery and stuff to mail out my, send it electronically, my resume to today's shows, the Ellen DeGeneres Show and the Jimmy Kimmel Show, which link to the new album I did with Jonah called Space Ranger. But unfortunately, Jonah is taking some time off. He's going to Mexico, and we need to wish him the best for his protection, and that he has a safe trip back so he can work with us when we come back. Anyway, I need you all to keep your fingers crossed I don't get evicted from my apartment. My landlady's coming on with me a ton of bricks that I have too much in my apartment. I tore down my train set. I threw everything out of the kitchen that she said was a fire hazard. I moved all my dishes and plates and my bags of food that were sitting in the living room to my storage place, and the cans I was storing there, I gave them free to the homeless, and then I cleaned out all the extra food I had and gave to homeless people sleeping in tents near the freeway. And I thought that would be satisfying, that she wouldn't ask for anything else. Bam! Your place is still not up to par. It's still a fire hazard. You've got to move more stuff. So when I get back to Los Angeles, I have to move more stuff to my public storage place. And Jonah doesn't believe me, but a guy that had helped me move my stuff, he said, "Oh, I didn't know you came out with a second, vinyl. You did a vinyl with Adam Papacan called the David Liebe Hart Band, with the One-Eyed Woman on it, and I Walk with God on it, and he said, "Oh, you did one called Space Ranger." He said, "Oh, I wish I could have a copy of it." I said to Michael Morgan, "It's my only copy. That's my only copy, and I can't let you have that." And after he helped me move, look, bam, it's gone. What the hell? He says, "Well, I'll bring it back." I said, "Well," then he said, "I didn't take it." I said, "Well, it's not here, Anyway, I have to forgive and move on, and I'm going to take another copy back with me. This place, I'm going to hide it. I'm going to hide it in my storage place and take it to the next I get. But Santa Cruz is beautiful. Yeah, just they need water here. They got beautiful pine trees. I was telling Jonah, I used to belong to a group called the Sierra Club, and the Sierra Club is a wonderful club to belong to. It teaches you go hiking, you go camping, you plant trees, bushes where there's been fires, and I'm trying to get Jonah to look into it. It's because he likes nature, he likes camp. When I was growing up, I went camping with my dad, Helibus Kashmir Hart. He was a civil rights leader and activist that worked with Dick Gregory. He worked with Izzy Davis and Ruby Dee. He worked with Helen Belafonte, and they worked with Dr. Martin Luther King for civil rights. They were very liberal, fighting for equality, for all people to be treated equally. And I watched my dad go on marches, and they got ugly, got arrested, and for fighting for civil rights. But my dad had a connection with Ed Sullivan, who was Irish, and a couple other whites that were Irish and German that always helped get the civil rights activists and out of jail. And they had us. I was looking at Jonah was playing there was a white activist talking about on the internet how the police have all the activists down, and how they infiltrate the civil rights movement and the activist movements. And I remember the same thing was down at when my dad was a civil rights leader with Dr. Martin Luther King. They had some sellout, they call them Uncle Tom blacks that were sellout, that followed the black civil rights leaders wherever they lived, and they were undercover policemen and would get them in trouble and everything. So I remember what my dad was talking about was the same thing I heard from this white activist from Colorado. So I remember when my dad was a civil rights leader and activist and doing marches. I remember the same thing that white activist was talking about in Colorado, what he went through. My dad also went through with that same kind of cross to bear back in the 60s, 70s. And anyway, I'm grateful for anybody that's an activist that wants to fight for equality. So, because it does say in our Constitution that all men are created equally. The thing I don't like is they say and they do not. They say we're supposed to have freedom of speech and justice, freedom for all, and then someone speaks out about something, they're persecuted. That's just not fair at all. I wrote a poem. I co-wrote a poem with a guy named James Montgomery, It was a poem in the Christian Science hymnal. I co-wrote it because I put it to my own music, and I wrote the lines, and I'm going to recite it to you. The poem says, God made all his creatures free. Life itself is liberty. God ordained no other band, but unites man heart and hand. So shall all discrimination cease. All people learn to live in peace. One in fellowship of mind, we are blissed and glorified in this endless happy whole, where our life as God and soul. So shall all discrimination cease, and war cease, and everybody learn to live in peace. One in fellowship of mind, we are blissed and glorified in this endless happy whole, where life is God and soul. So shall all discrimination cease. All people learn to live in peace. So shall all slavery cease. All God's children live in peace. And the newborn earth record, love and love alone is Lord. And then I wrote the line, God made all his people free. Life itself is dignity. So shall all racism cease, and all people learn to get along in peace. So shall all discrimination cease, and everybody learn to live in justice and peace. And you can hear me doing my original music arrangement to this on Christian Hymns and Praise Part 2. And this song is I wrote this song for the civil rights movement, for anybody that is fighting for dignity and justice for all races of people. And I feel that all men are truly created equally. They wouldn't discriminate against Hispanics or Asians. And I feel that's very arrogant and rude for them to say. And I don't agree with this part of Donald Trump doesn't know a lot of American Indians. A lot of Hispanics and Asians also fought for the American flag. So they should not be telling the Latinos that they should not build a wall against Latinos, because let me tell you something. Before the Alamo happened, the Latinos owned California, New Mexico, and Texas. So and the American Indians own the whole United States. So how dare we tell them that they don't belong in their own territory? You know, and then my African American side was brought over as slaves, and I'm part American Indian and Caucasian, German, Irish, and Scandinavian and French, and a little bit of English, and Apache, Blackfoot, Sumac Indian, and Scandinavian, Swedish. I found I have Austrian in me, Ziegenfelder and Schultz. What happened was a Catholic priest. Back then they were taking advantage of women. My great-great-grandmother from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, when the family used to be Catholic, she was raped by a Catholic priest that was a Ziegenfelder and family Schultz as well, and so I found out I got Austrian mixed in me. Anyway, I hope someday we can all learn to get along. You know, we need to stop, instead of building walls, we need to build bridges to bring people together. That's what my grandmother Schroeder used to always say, you know. And I like what Mary Baker Eddy says in prose works, one race, one realm. All people should be treated equally and fairly. This is by Mary Baker Eddy. And then I like my favorite other passage from her, from Mary Baker Eddy was a strong activist too. She freed her husband's slaves, Mr. Baker's slaves in the South, because she said God never made us a slave but a free man, and she was tar-feathered out of the city for what she did and what she believed in, and she had to go back and live in Massachusetts. And I really respect Mary Baker Eddy for her dignity and her liberalness. Also, the Unitarians did a lot of work with the activist organizations and fighting for equality, and they still do. And they're a wonderful group that works against racism and slavery and intolerance, as well as the Quaker Friends Church and the Mennonites that were behind freeing African Americans through the Underground Railroad as well. And my family used to be Quaker Friends and used to be Mennonites, my family from Pennsylvania. And I'm grateful for all the liberal whites and the liberal blacks and the liberal Hispanics, especially the liberal Jews that are fighting for equality for everybody in the United States and in the world. Anyway, those old conservative racist people, I pray that they learn intolerance and a love for all people. Anyway. But anyway, I'm traveling to a very liberal place where Joan Baez bought what used to be a Christian Science church, and has a lot of bands and people doing music. What used to be a Christian Science church is going to be my second time playing there with Joan Emotion, and I'm excited about playing that. But they gave us an earlier show and Santa Cruz, and I'm grateful for the liberalness of Santa Cruz and Southern California. The only thing is, I know that where I part from my dad and Jonah is I like organized religion, and I like the military, and I'm patriotic. I know my dad also was like Jonah. He felt the same way that Jonah felt, but I don't know why I still like those two things, but I do, and I guess it was grounded in me. I stayed with my cousin Phyllis McKinnon. She was a retired Army officer, and she was very conservative and very Republican, and I didn't agree with all her views, but association brings assimilation, but the thing I did like about my cousin Phyllis McKinnon is she was very strongly in the UFO phenomenon, since she used to work at Wright-Patterson's Air Force Base. And she had her home, she stayed she owned 8 buildings, and she owned property in 8 places in Los Angeles. And she used to own the stores and the property at the Nita racetrack on my Caucasian side, but she shared with me, and she has buildings in the Fairfax area and the Culver City area. She shared with me how they had the computers and the cell phones and the GPS way back in the 70s. She showed me how she had copies of them, and the computer was a lot bigger than it almost was the size of a door. And it's amazing how technology made it small that can fit in a cell phone and a laptop. And she showed me the laptops and the cell phones and everything. And she said all this technology would be in the hands of every school, business, and church and company by year 2000. She died in 1992 of cancer, Hopkins disease, and didn't get to see her what she predicted, but we did. And it inspired the song New Technology that you can hear on my Astronaut album. And also I have another version that I did with Adam Papagan that's was on my mixtape 1. But anyway, Santa Cruz is beautiful, and I pray for rain. And I was visiting a Christian Science church, and they had everybody make baskets and clothes and canned goods for the people that suffered, and we're supposed to be getting help through the Principal Foundation and at the Christian Science Church when I was in Pennsylvania, and I had to do it again when I was at Christian Science Church in New Hampshire. I did donate $60 and help them put the baskets together, and I'm hoping that more people will give an outreach to helping out those people that are in need. My prayers go with all the people that suffered fire and floods, and I pray for their families and everything. You cannot give enough, because so many people, a lot of people lost their businesses, homes, and everything. So I'm praying that God will restore the years that the locusts have eaten, and that help will come through also FEMA and other entities that help people out in need, such as Lutheran Social Services and the Red Cross. I take my hat to them. I remember when that terrible thing happened in Louisiana. At the time, I was working with Mr. Wagner, who used to be a member of the Pasadena Christian Science Church. Him and I put together a lot of clothes and food for the people that were suffering in Louisiana. What was that thing that happened a long time ago in Louisiana that they had the floods? What was that called? It was a big crisis that happened in Louisiana. Well, anyway, Katrina. And I haven't seen or heard from Mr. Wagner, but wherever he is, I want to thank him for helping me do that charity work we did a long time ago at First Church Christ Scientists in Pasadena, California. He disappeared, went to Mexico, but he was a wonderful guy and a wonderful Christian scientist that I respect and tip my hat out to. I'm so grateful to God that I'm going to be able to put on my new album. I'm going to do a lot of new music from my new album called Space Ranger. You can hear it, and I want to thank Jonah for doing a professional job and producing it and helping me with the songs and everything and being a part of the music thing. I like the artwork that's done about me because I was being on a cowboy, because I loved horses. I loved cowboys when I was growing up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. In fact, there's a picture of me riding with a cowboy straw hat, a picture that was taken of me back in 1958 when I was a young kid. And I loved westerns and cowboy movies. Anyway, it's beautiful. Northern California really has class. I love the beautiful pine trees here. I love the beautiful forests here. I love the beautiful lakes here. And I hope that urban renewal doesn't destroy it with building up too many houses and buildings. They need to have places where we keep nature protected. I was friends with Jack Lord, who was on the original Hawaii Five-0. I was a part of his group in saving the whales, and he belonged to a very liberal group saving whales from being killed because so many people were killing whales and using their tusk and everything, and that was a wonderful group. I don't know if it's still going on because Jack Lord died about 15 years ago. He was a Christian scientist, and he was from he was a very, very talented guy that cared about nature and wildlife. He also was with a group that fought for them cutting trees down because trees are landmarks and they give us oxygen. And I have to agree with my partner Jonah Motion that trees and nature need to be preserved for animals, because so many animals have nowhere to go when we chop down their inhabitants, such as the trees, and they live off the trees and the mushrooms, and it's not fair that they're taken out of their habitation, and that I agree that. So it's good for you all to become an activist in saving nature, saving trees, saving fish and animals, because they are a part of us, and we're a part of them, and we should respect nature and not destroy it. I used to go camping. I used to belong to the 4-H club, and then I was a Cub Scout, and growing up. And being a Cub Scout, you are taught to respect nature, like the animals, and the fish and stuff. And the only part where people would disagree is when I go fishing with my dad, and I went fishing when I was in the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts. They would have us hunt fish and birds, and I know you vegans wouldn't like that. And one thing my dad loved to hunt and fish, and we caught enough fish, bluegill, crappies, and catfish that we had enough food to last us all the way until August. And then my dad used to hunt duck and pigeon and wild turkey, and we had to pay for a license, just like I had to pay for a license for driving. But anyway, but anyway, I enjoyed going camping when I was a kid out in the forest. It was beautiful, the fresh air. And I used to belong to this Christian Science camp called Adventures Unlimited. They were in Colorado, and we canoed beautiful lakes. We went hiking up in the Rocky Mountains. It was a beautiful that and the 4-H club if you have children, you should get them in a camp during the summer, so then you and your wife or girlfriend can have your private times together. It can teach the kids to love and respect nature. And the 4-H clubs are from the Midwest, and the Sierra Club is for adults. It's just wonderful. And then the Sierra Club teaches you the names of the different birds and the wild fish and everything, and the different wild flowers and the different trees. If I was not so busy, I'd like to get back involved in this Sierra Club. Anyway, I want to tell you fans, the famous actor and musician David Liebehart, I want to thank Tim and Eric for airing a show that I did with Scott Clam. I didn't think they were going to air it. I did it 3 years ago, and they didn't feel it was good enough to air. And bam! Last Sunday, and Jonah showed it to me that they aired me doing a show with Scott Clam talking about trains, and I want to thank Absolutely Production for airing that, and I hope they'll air a lot of other stuff that's been kept in the closet. There was supposed to be a spinoff called Getting It Done with Richard Dunn, and it never developed. And then Bulls and Latinos was supposed to be a show with Zach Zalbanakis teaching acting classes, and I was supposed to be a voice teacher on that. That never came to be. Also, back then, Neil Hamburger was supposed to have a game show. That never came to be. So there's a lot of stuff that never came to be that was supposed to be. And also a spinoff called Bag Boys was supposed to be a spinoff from Check It Out with Dr. Steve Brule. Well, I'm going to be positive and just thank God and the powers that be for all the acting that I've done and all the music I've done. And I want to thank the people that helped me, even the people that stole from me and didn't pay me, because it helped me. It got my publicity out there. But anyway, I would like to get my gospel albums done professional, because they were not mastered. And Christian Hymns and Praise, Part 1 and Part 2 and Part 3, and did Ezekiel See a UFO. And I want to thank Lloyd Majors and Peter Allen, we were close friends, and I did a lot of recording at his studio. And when he used to live in Hollywood, now he lives in Santa Rosa. My prayers go with him and his family going through the trial of the fire, but I wish they would have mastered the CDs. They didn't master those CDs. So I'm looking for someone to help me redo the music with my voice vocal over of Christian hymns and praise over again and have it done professionally with this similar same music, but mastered. So if you are, I belong to the Hymn Society and the Oregon Guild of America. They're wonderful organizations to belong to. Just like there's fans of, you're a fan of me as an actor and musician from Tim and Eric Awesome Show, great job. They have people that belong to the Oregon Guild of America and the Hymn Society that are fans of religious music. And so, if you are a fan and you like religious music like I do, I'd like you to help me do those albums over again professionally, so they're done with quality. I've been selling them, but I feel they're real bad that they haven't been mastered. And the professional musicians that hear them say, well, your music arrangement, David's good on there, your singing is good on there, even some of the instruments are good on there, but the songs need to be professionally mastered. So if you're have a love for religious music, and you want to help me fulfill that dream of getting it done professionally, I appreciate it. I am getting a lot of emails from Samantha Amistrich Production Company. I don't know why, but I get about 6 or 7 different emails. I want if you could help me. If you have some connections, you're from Australia, let Samantha Armitage know that I would love to be a part of her show and do the Space Ranger album on the show with Jonah Motion. So, and I also, way back, before I did the Tim and Eric Awesome Show, great job, and check it out with Dr. Steve Brule, a beautiful white lady said that the people in Australia wanted to have an ethnic journalist, an anchor man that was of color. And she stopped and she gave me her phone number. And I mailed her my picture and resume. And she said she was going to pay my way to come to Sydney, Australia, to be an anchorman, and I never ever heard back from her. So if you remember meeting me at La Brea Tar Pits, say about 14 years ago, and you wanted to hire me, I'm still interested in that job on the side because I need something steady. Because being an actor, musician, and songwriter is like working a lotto machine. It's like chocolate candy. You don't know what you're going to get. It's a gamble. But I'm happy to do the gamble because I want to thank God and Jonah. Since I've been working with Jonah, I've made more money with Jonah than I ever made with Robin Williams or Adam Papagan, and I was able to pay off all but 3 credit cards. And so I'm hoping and keeping my fingers crossed that I can get my... I got tricked by Bank of America to get another credit card after I paid off 8 credit cards. They said, we got a great travel package for this blue card. And they were rats. It was a ripoff. They know that they conned me and tricked me, and it was pretty, now I have to pay off another credit card, number 3. So I want to thank God for the victory of paying off my Capital One, my Radio Shack. I paid off Radio Shack just before they went out of business. Because this honesty, Mary Baker Eddy says, honesty is spiritual power, and Christ Jesus says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So I'm glad I'm learning to be purely honest, and even because the people they hire for those credit cards, they have to get paid as well. Lloyd Majors and some ex-Navy friends of mine tell me, oh, you should not pay off your credit cards. They'll and I said, well, the credit card people hire people to work, and they deserve to be paid. The labor is worthy of his hire. I want to get paid for when I work as a musician and an actor. So and then I used to be as a debt solution company. They're from Massachusetts, and then they moved to Florida, and then they moved to Texas, called Debt Solution, and they took out a huge amount of my money to pay off the debt and burying my mom, my 2 younger sisters, and my dad. And they didn't have any life insurance. And I love my mom, I love my dad, and I love my 2 younger sisters, even though they cheated me out of my inheritance when my mom died, and they sold my mother's home behind my back with my uncle. Yeah, like Mary Baker Eddy says, you got to wait and love more for every hate and fear. I have to know ill since God is good and loss is gain. I had to do a lot of forgiveness about that. Well, I'm in Santa Cruz, and I'm just grateful for this mini tour that I've done. I've been in San Francisco, and I want to thank my fans that drove me to see the Key System behind bars, and they took me across the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was, even though I don't smoke weed, this heavy-set Hispanic guy smokes weed with his cat. Well, to each his own. Whatever rocks your boat. I'm not prejudiced. I'm liberal. To each his own. We got to respect people for what they like and what they do. I don't have any room to be prejudiced, because we're all part of the whole, and we're all learning, and we've got to respect each other no matter what we're into. And I'm addicted to trains, and I like beautiful white girls, and Hispanic and Asian girls, and I especially like white girls a lot. So people got to respect what I like, and I respect what they like. So, well, he's got the air condition turned on instead of the windows down. I like the fresh air,
Hey, David, we're almost at our destination. You want to take us out with some train sounds like you did in the recent TV episode you were on? How about, can you do an impression of the Erie Lackawanna? What's its horn sound like?
That is an F7 or F3 locomotive on the Erie Lackawanna Railroad.
Can you do its horn?
I
thought that was the engine sound.
Well,
there we go.
All right.
All right, Adventures with David.
Okay, good.
Concluding.
Okay, as James Squaw would say, don't make a popsicle out of. Open up the window and turn off the air conditioner.
Air conditioning is not on.
Well, me and David Lieberhart do not like the air condition. We like fresh air. We don't want to become a human popsicle. James Squaw, may God bless. Thank you. Goodbye.